Greetings, it's Mike from Modern Retro Dev. Today I'd like to talk to you about the first of my projects I'm going to be sharing. Stay tuned. So it was originally my intention to talk about the 3 current projects that I'm working on. But as I put together my notes for this one particular project, it was just way too much. So I've decided I'm just going to talk about one of my 3 big projects this week, and I will probably follow up with the other 2 projects in my next videos. And in case you're curious, the other 2 projects that I am not going to be talking about this week, one is a project for developing a game, and another is a project for developing a compiler. But for this week, something different than both of those. All right, so this first project here I'd like to talk about is Modern Palm Leaves. And this is basically my take on small web and small documents. When I say documents, I mean specifically kind of like PDFs, things that are laid out. And I'm certain what you thought already is, oh, hey, wait a second, Mike. Small web already exists. And you're absolutely right. Gopher does exist, and Project Gemini does exist, and they've been around for a while. Gopher dates back to 1991, contemporary of HTTP, and Project Gemini is much newer, coming in about 2019. And they're both interesting things, but what they are trying to accomplish is different than I have in mind. And one big part of that is I don't think either one of them is particularly optimized for modern retro. For starters, when working with the Commander X16, I've noticed that things go a lot easier when you have your file sizes at 8K or less. It allows you to just load stuff directly into the banked memory area. So taking that into consideration makes a lot of things easier. Also, I don't think making TLS mandatory is a good idea. I don't think these 65816 systems are going to handle that all that well, so that's not going to work. Also, these systems tend to have plentiful hardware sprites, so I'm thinking the right thing to do would be to abuse them. Finally, another performance consideration is that the client should not be responsible for laying out content. And some of these things tend to be a bit freeform, which puts the burden on the client. So I'm of the opinion the server or the person that compiles the document, it should be laid out at that point in time, and from that point it should just be a static thing. So my inspiration on this project is palm leaf manuscripts. And this is a pretty historic way to store information. It dates back to I think 500 BC. I might be getting that wrong, but in Southeast Asia, palm leaves would be dried out and kind of chopped up as you see in this image, and then they would use a bit of twine to basically string them together, and from the small bits of information you can create an actual story and capture a big bit of information. So the thought here is okay, well, how do you take this concept and apply it digitally? Because that's kind of what I want to aim for. So my first prototype on this, I made a little C SDL prototype that ran on a modern Linux system. And in this, I just wanted to see how those horizontal strips of information could be presented. Could you actually present a compelling amount of information on one of these 80-column layouts that are typical of these modern retro systems, and would it be worthwhile? And in this particular mock-up, the actual text is all gibberish, but I do have some letters in there which would indicate what images, where images could exist within this document. because this is one thing that I do. I guess I value it a lot. I understand it's not a part of Gopher or Gemini, but for me, the internet must have images. So that's something that's in my mock-up. And I thought this was interesting enough to pursue a little bit more. So I decided to chase after an example that would be a little bit more interesting than just random gibberish. And so in this circumstance, I decided to look at the Wikipedia page for the MOS 6502. Figure most people interested in this content are already familiar with this processor, but this is what I wanted to try and lay out. So I went ahead and took this information from this web page and tossed it into a Word document, and to make it like the way I would be presenting it, switched over the text into a monospace font. It's basically what we're working with. And I did some adjustments to the font size and said, okay, well, my goal is 72 columns of monospace font. Blam. So I put it in there. And the other idea was each one of these leaves, and you can see the leaves numbered on the left in blue, would have basically nominally 8 rows of text. And the idea is it would be a mixture of text and image. So this is me sort of laying it out here, how it should look. And then, okay, well, now it's time to actually throw it into a prototype. Oh, wait, psych. Here we have a phone basically showing off that same web page. And the reason I wanted to show this off is for anyone who said that, oh, that prototype on the previous page, it's not going to show the information in a dense enough way. I'm here to argue that that's not true. That plenty of people would be happy to look at this information on their phone, because people probably stare more at phones than anything else. So there is some nominal like information density on a line that people want to see. And if your DPI goes high enough, then it's just going to be higher resolution characters, but it's still about the same amount of character that the human eye is comfortable reading. And here's another example. In this circumstance, we're looking at the same page, albeit in portrait mode. And this could be an interesting target if we decided to go for, supporting 40 column modes, but that's not something I'm looking into right now. So as far as the current mockup. So in this case, I actually went ahead and created a program in C that is running on the Commander X16. And this takes that same information and splats it on the page here. So I wanted to create kind of a web browser inspired UI for this, and then throw the information in there. And at least to my eyes, this looks like it all fits and makes sense. And if I can point your attention to the numbers on the left, those indicate the leaves in which the information or the horizontal strips of information are. And the numbers 1 through 8 on the upper right, that's going to be basically where that image would go. So I mentioned those horizontal leaves, but this is a better indication, sort of highlighting them. This is the first leaf, which is a mixture of text and image data. And on the right, you can see this is basically going to be comprised of 4 sprites put into those locations, 1 through 4. The second leaf is also a mix of text and image data, and there's going to be 4 more sprites there. And in this circumstance, I'm using 64 by 64 pixel sprites. And we have a third leaf that's text only, 4th leaf, 5th leaf, text only. So I've mentioned images a number of times. That's an important aspect of this. From the outset, there's been a couple of limitations that I think would have to be in place for this to actually work. And the first thought was that I want to limit it to basically 1 image per leaf, so no side-by-side left and right images. You could have 1 image and it could be a big one, but there can only be 1 per line, just to make laying it out easier and so that I don't overwhelm the system with too many sprites. Also, I wanted to limit the image width to 128 pixels wide. It can be very tall, but it can only be that wide. Also, I wanted to limit the individual leaves to a 16 color palettes. So that way, there's going to be nominally 5 leaves displayed at a time. That would use up 10 of the 16 color palettes. 10 of the available 16 color palettes. So that would still leave some other palettes for me to handle for the UI and whatnot. And that basically gives us either 15 to 30 colors to work with per image. And I think that would be fine. So revisiting the earlier prototype here, we're going to go ahead and add an image to it. So I'm just going to replace these sprite numbers with the actual sprite that goes there. You can see 1 through 3 there. This is sprite 4. Now we're into the second leaf, and they'll just be added as so. So that's what it looks like. And to my eyes, this looks like a pretty compelling presentation of information. And we can even go ahead and compare this against the Wikipedia page again. And I think as far as information density, like we've got a lot in there, and certainly there could be, if there's interest, we could look at doing a, mini page, half page thing to the right. But for an initial swing, I think like this does a pretty good job. And, certainly I'm not even leveraging any colors on the text layer, which could provide, a great emphasis or indicate links and all that, but good enough for a first swing. Next, I'd like to give you guys a little show of performance. Everything I've shown so far have just been images, but I don't want you guys to get to thinking that these are just images. This is an actual program, and I realize I have the text all compiled into the program, so it's not going to be perfectly indicative of performance, but at least this should give you some sort of an idea. So let's look. All right, so I've demonstrated a bunch of things, but still this is just in mock-up phase, so I'd like to get around to actually making this prototype do something aside from load. So that would obviously be the next step. After that, I'd like to switch over the size of the image blocks from 64 by 64 to 32 by 32. And that's because one of the other systems that I absolutely want to target is the Phoenix F256 system. And that system nominally supports sprites of 32 by 32 size. So if I just go ahead and incorporate this into my design right now, it'll be easier to port that over in the future. Then I want to do some performance testing, because I've only really been talking about this from the standpoint of, oh, it's running on documents and information on the SD card, but one of the recent developments in these modern retro systems is they're all incorporating the ability to connect to things on the internet or on the network. So to me, this seems like this could be a natural place where we can basically serve up a mix of text and image data that these systems can handle. So I need to do some performance testing and see if it can actually be feasible, or is it too slow? Don't know yet. Finally, I do want to do some experiments with using 30 colors, and that would be basically anywhere there's an image, we'd basically use a double layer of sprites, each one representing 15 colors and a bunch of transparency. Yeah, it should be kind of Amiga-ish as far as look and stuff. I think it should be pretty cool. So that pretty much sums up what I wanted to show you guys today. And that leads me to the next thing, which is I have a few questions. The first is really regarding future videos. Are you guys more interested in seeing the game prototype that I was working on, or would you be more interested in hearing this compiler shenanigans I've been doing? Also, I am very interested in feedback about this project. So if you have any ideas, good, bad, or other, please let me know. And with regards to what you would like to see next, if you could put that in the comments, it would be greatly appreciated. It'll help me to make things that are more interesting for all of y'all. So anyhow, that's it for this week. And that means it's my cue to get back to some modern retro dev. Take care.